Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be working on my KTM, my dirt bike. I'm going to be changing the rear spring in it so that it's more suited for my weight. So this is what we're working on today, guys. This is my 2011, it's new to me, KTM. This is a 350 SXF 4-stroke dirt bike. I bought this recently. It has 26.5 original hours. This is a super fun bike. It's been very well cared for. I've got some other videos if you want to check it out. So the issue that I'm having, guys, is that I set up the suspension for me, and these bikes are set up to have a rider that weighs roughly 187 pounds to the maximum. Well, the issue is I weigh just a little over 200, and you can see I've just experimented with the shock, trying to get my sag settings right. I picked up a tool, and we'll go over it a little bit later, and I tried to set up the sag on this bike, and it had like 76 millimeters of static sag, and I think it's supposed to have like 35. What I'm getting at is I couldn't get this in spec with this shock that's currently in it right now. So what I did was I purchased a new shock for the proper spring rate for my weight, and then we're going to set it up. We got to take a lot of this suspension apart, take the swing arm off to get this shock out. But while we're going to do all this, if we're going to go to the hassle of removing the shock and taking the swing arm off and taking the linkage off, I might as well grease everything while I'm at it. This is what I've got for a spring. I've got a brand new one. It's actually one size firmer, and it's set up for my weight. So this is what we're going to be putting in today, and greasing the suspension. I've taken off the chain, I've taken off the rear wheel, and I've pulled out 2 of the suspension bolts as well as the swing arm. I just took the swing arm completely out of it, make tons of room for myself, and then the shock just literally slid right out. I'm at the process where I'm going to change out this spring for this one. You can see this one has a spring rate of 54,260. And this one has a spring rate of 57,260. I don't know what this YM or this WR stands for, but I've looked at them both, and they're definitely identical. And I'm going to show you how to get this apart. You can use a screwdriver. I've already loosened this ring up right here, got that out of the way. And you can use a screwdriver to back this part off, but I don't bother with that just because it scars it up. I actually have the wrench to do it. So I'm just gonna back this off. You gotta just make it so that it's loose, so this spring will be loose in here. So I'm gonna back it off a ways up. Towel down so it's not getting scratched up or anything. So we'll move this side here kind of way up, just out of the way. And then we take this side here and push it back. And you can see there's a little retainer clip right on there. You gotta just remove that clip. Just like that. Now this will slide off. So you got that, then this little washer piece. Now your spring will come right off. Now this is a good time to clean everything up, compare your old with new. You can see they're the same length, comparing them. So now we just put it back together, reversing the order. And if you're like me, make sure whatever you do, you don't put this spring back together with this lettering upside down, because it will drive you crazy forever. So let me tighten this down. I think this is supposed to have 12 millimeters of preload. So that means when there's no tension on the spring, we're going to tighten that little collar down at the very top 12 millimeters to put just a little bit of preload on that spring. So to figure out how to get 12 millimeters of preload, there's no tension on the spring right now. I'm just going to put these calipers up under this washer here and up tight to the top of this shock body, and it's measuring 61.9, so we'll call that 62, and then we'll add 12 millimeters to it. So we need to tighten this down to 74 millimeters. 7397, and that's almost identical to 12 millimeters of preload from what we started with. So we're going to leave that right there. That is absolutely perfect. Now we just got to install it back on the bike. Going to put a little bit of grease on this upper pin with this upper shock mount. I like to grease everything when I'm working on suspension while we're right here. Keep all the water out of it from pressure washing it and keep everything working nice and smooth. We'll feed that shock up in there, get it right out of the way, and then we can start lubricating the suspension. We'll torque everything after. Oh yeah, that's nice. A lot of times these bushings up here, this will be the bushing that ends up wearing out first. This one's wicked tight, but then again, supposedly this bike only has like 26 hours on it, so I guess it would be tight, right? I removed the last little piece of the suspension, which is right here, and I don't know if it really matters or not, but I put a little dot, a black permanent marker dot, so that I know that which side is up and which side is down. So I'm going to push this bushing out right here and just put some grease inside of that. This one looked pretty dry. From everything that I've read, apparently a lot of bikes, not just KTM's, the bushings and suspension stuff comes really dry. So I'm going to add some grease to it and make sure it's all sealed up good. And I've just got some grease left over from another suspension that I did a while back, and I actually just went to my local motorcycle shop and just picked up some more of this as well. This is made actually for suspensions. It says it's a high load bearing grease, and this came with a suspension kit that I had bought for one of my other bikes, so it's what it's made for. There's no signs of rust or anything inside these bearings, so obviously nothing has gotten past the seals on the bushings here, so these bearings and bushings all feel really good, so I'm not worried about, you know, any of that. The suspension felt really tight, but while we're right here, might as well, you know, put some fresh grease and everything and make it good, make it better while we're right here. I'm actually pretty excited, guys. I just got an email back from somebody that I reached out to. It was a dealership, and I was looking to find a newer 350 because my wife just drove this one. We went dirt bike riding last week and she loved it. She has the little 100 dirt bike, and it's just not quite enough for the trails. She drove my 350 here and she loved it. It was a little tall, so I'd have to put a lowering kit in it. So that prompted me to think about, well, maybe I could give her this bike and then I could go and look for a new one for me. So I reached out to a dealer and asked them if they had any leftover 350s from, like, you know, 2022 or 2023, because we're coming out into the 24 models now. And he said he didn't have any 350s, but he had a 450 SXF KTM for the same price as the 350. It was brand new, and he sent me an out-the-door price, and I could not believe it. It's like almost $2,000 under MSRP, and I think that's because the new bikes are coming out. So now I'm all jacked up to potentially get a new bike. So we may be doing that in the near future here, going for a road trip and picking up a new bike, guys. It's a super good deal. So we'll find out. I got this all nice and lubed up, and I've got it facing the same way it was when I took it out. Like I said, guys, I'm just going to snug everything up on this, and then we'll go back later once it's all back together and put a torque wrench on everything that we've taken apart. This one I don't think we can get a torque wrench on because it's going to be too tight of a clearance to get in there, but you know, we'll just put it on tight. We'll have to read what the torque value is and see what we can do here. So needless to say, I'm pretty jacked up about maybe getting a new bike. Hopefully it's not too good to be true, you know what I mean? So now I'm just going to lube up the swing arm and all these pivot points. This suspension looks really good. But like I said, supposedly this bike has 26 original hours on it, so it should look pretty good anyways, right? Yeah, this grease right here is left over from when I did my 2001 KTM. I redid everything on that bike. And I recently sold that bike, and that's what allowed me to buy this. I actually bought this bike, and I bought a 2019 Yamaha TTR 50 for my grandson. That's an electric start 50cc dirt bike. And the thing is I like about this bike is this is the first four-stroke bike I've ever owned. I've never owned a four-stroke bike. I've never owned a fuel-injected bike, which is what this one is. And I've never owned a bike that's electric start, and this one is also. That's why I say this would be, I think, a great bike for my wife, because it is electric start and it has all those, you know, those features that are nice. Yeah, these are definitely really dry. They can use a lot of grease. It took a lot. It didn't hardly push any of the grease out. Definitely room for it in there. So right down in there, there's some needle bearings, and that's where I'm putting the grease, and it looks really good. The inside of that bore doesn't have any pitting or corrosion. It actually looks awesome down in there. So I'm just adding extra grease as a preventive measure. This will just make everything last so much longer. One thing I just noticed, guys, is that this swing arm pivot bolt was in backwards. On this side, there's actually a flat spot that prevents this from turning. This nut was over here before. It should have been on the other side. This model bike, the 2011, it actually had something to do with the crank, where the motor had to be split in half, and it was a warranty issue under this model, but I can't remember all the details. So to get this motor out, you would have to pull this out. So it looks like somebody, when they put it back together, they put the nut on the wrong side. That's why I'm so adamant of doing my own maintenance. Unless you buy something brand spanking new, you don't know what was done to it. And even then, if it's brand new, you don't know if the factory did it right. You assume that they did because you're paying premium price for something, but you know, there's lemons in anything and things get put together wrong, and clearly this got put together wrong. That's for sure. We'll just start pulling these things apart and lubricating everything. Yeah, everything looks super nice on this, guys. Like, no grooves or anything worn into them. Everything just feels really nice. I'm trying to just pack as much grease as I possibly can get, like I said, in here, because the more grease that you get in it, that's less places for water to get trapped and cause rust. Especially if you wash your bike a lot, because you don't want to go driving, you know, water down into these seals, but that can happen real easy when you're using a pressure washer. It can just blow right past the seals. Alright, I'm going to finish this up, and I'll come back when it's ready to be put on. I'm just going to keep packing grease everywhere that it'll fit in there. And once it can't fit anymore, we'll put it all back together. This suspension was dry, guys. I've already gone through a tube and a half so far, and now I'm opening another tube of this stuff. Definitely needed it. I'm glad that I went through it when I did, before any water got driven down in there, and then we have more problems, you know. Alright, let's get this back in there. I'm just going to put the chain on and then torque everything down. One of the things that I like to do when I get a bike is, one, I like to get a service manual. Usually they're all digital now and they're online, but I like to print out the pages that are applicable to me. That usually has to do with all the technical data and all of the torque data, and it just makes it super handy, especially doing stuff like this. The pages are in this like cellophane thing so that I don't have to worry about the pages getting all greasy. And then I just find out what it is I'm working on and find out the torque value and torque it to that. Just makes it real handy. And then what I do is write down all the torque values on a piece of paper, so that way I don't have to keep like trying to flip through this book to figure out what they are and where they are. So rear axle nut for this bike is 59. Swing arm pivot is 73.8. Oh, that's a lot of torque. Yeah, wow. 73.8, wow. Here we go. These linkage levers are 59. And this one's also 59. Now to figure out how tight that is, I'm going to put a wrench on this one. Wow, I can't even move it. So I know that this has to be super tight up here to the point that I probably can't move it. And the upper shock. Oh. Now we're ready to set up our suspension. This is what I'm jacked up to show you guys. This is how I figured out that my suspension was way off. And what this is that this is a sag setting tool. And basically you need to set your sag on your bike so that it's set up properly, so that it handles properly. And it's not just for dirt bikes, for street bikes and everything else. So I've been going around setting the sag on all the bikes. My wife's bike was absolutely perfect. My street bike that I drive, my Ninja 1000, that one was off. So I brought that to the adjustment that it should be. And then this one obviously was off. And I'm going to show you how awesome this is to use. This isn't a sponsored video. I bought this with my own money. So this is a super strong magnet. Just stick this on the wheel hub. This is a bracket that they give you. They give you all kinds of different attachment points, but this is a bracket that they give you. And just screw it on to here like this. And then this is like a rope. Pull it out and hook it to that hook. Then down here you have a power button and a light. So then you download an app, which is awesome. And you can see you can add all your bikes. We're working on the 2011 KTM, so I'm going to go power on the tool. So create new, and we're going to call it new spring setup. And you can see it's all put in all the settings on the suspension, as you can see right here. I had to enter these all in when I first got it. Rider sag, we're shooting for about 100 millimeters, and static sag, we're shooting for 34. So what we're going to do is go to virtual remote. We're going to do auto zero, saying lift the bike. There we go. So you can see here we're at the 2011 KTM 350 SXF, and for the rear shock it's saying that we should have a static sag of between 35 millimeters plus or minus 5 millimeters. Well, we're at 44. So we need to put some more preload in that so that the bike isn't squatting as much in the rear, and we'll get that number right around, say, 35 millimeters. And the way we'll do that is by tightening up this adjuster right here. Better, so it's settling at about 42. We still got to tighten it some more. So we're at 38 static sag right now, which is within plus or minus 5 millimeters. Pushing down on the bike, settles out to around 38. So this would give us plus 5, so we could be up to 40 and down to 30. So between 30 and 40 is a good measurement. So now let me sit on it, and we're shooting for a static sag of 105. So 124. So I think what we're going to do is get that static sag number a little bit better, which will also help the rider sag number as well. So we're going to tighten the shock a little bit more. Ooh, look at that, 30. Oh yeah, 32. Oh yeah, that's going to be good. So remember, we were shooting for a static sag number of 35 millimeters plus or minus 5. Okay, now we're looking for a rider sag of 105 plus or minus 10. Oh yeah. Yep, that's pretty good. 112. So yeah, right around 110. 105 plus 10 or minus 10. So, yep. That's good, guys. I'm liking that. This bike's going to handle super good now. So now to update this, I just do a couple seat bounces on it. And then I'll do static sag, hit the update button. So that just saved that. Now I'm going to sit on it and have it update the rider sag. So it is 112. I'll hit update. There we go. So we're within the parameters that we need to be, guys. And that's it. So we've got 2011 KTM 350 SFX SXF and new spring setup, and it does the date and time. And you can see right there, static sags at 32. We're allowed 35 plus or minus 5. And rider sags 112, and we're allowed 105 plus or minus 10. So now the rear suspension's all dialed in. Once you get the rear dialed in, then you can adjust your clickers and all the other stuff. I'll have to see about the front forks, because you can use this same tool to set sag on the front forks. So I'm going to have to look into that and get all the adjustments. But yeah, I just wanted to get all this dialed in, and this is good now. Brand new spring in there. This should work good. I just got to tighten down this adjusting column. We'll be good to go. Thanks for watching, guys. Join us soon. We'll be taking this out and taking it for a ride. Take care, guys. See ya. Till the next one. Bye.